Time now for everyone's favorite segment of the week. It is time.
It's time for
I'm excited about this.
Q&A,
it's fun when you have a new
fans.
team to follow, you know?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, look at these kits. I don't even know what that logo is. What is that logo?
That's a tree.
No. Like the company that makes the stuff. It's like a guy with his hands up. Are you familiar with that?
Answer your questions.
No.
I bet Connor knows.
On your feet because
Connor's
here
also
he is,
able to chime in here.
Connor, can you chime in? What is that logo? It's like a triangle. It's like a person with, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out right now. Pinnacle?
Pinnacle. I don't know about this pinnacle business. Anyway, time now for everyone's favorite segment of the week. Thank you, Mike Heck. Let's go to the questions. Here they are. All right. Let's take this baby home. Our great friend Lewis has sent over the questions. Moderator Lewis, I have them. And away we go. El Cubano is leading us off. Hola, Ariel. Over the next 2 months, we will have more clarity at the top of the Bantamweight division, starting with this week's main event of Vera Cruz. The following matchups scheduled for the division are as follows. Sterling Dillashaw, Jan O'Malley, Aldo Dawalishvili, Sanhagen Song, Vera Cruz. Yes, we spoke about these. What a tremendous lineup of matches that is. Wow, that's 5 big-time fights. My question this week is, who do you see besides Sterling and Dillashaw to have the clearest path to a title shot? Viva Helwani. Very interesting that he doesn't include Cejudo. It's going to be interesting. I could see, listen, they just announced this show in Brazil. Aldo wins. Does he get a title shot in Brazil? I could see that happening. Vera, big fight, big win, possible. I could see winner of Sterling Dillashaw fighting Cejudo. I really think you have to see how these play out. Dawalishvili with a big win. O'Malley gets the big win over Jan. Do they fast track him? It's a lot of permutations. I think if Aldo wins, I could see him getting a title shot in Brazil. They're going to want to stack that card. It's a big one for them. New network. I could see that happening. So that might be your answer. But man, Dawalishvili, no joke. Historically, Aldo does well against those guys. But I can't wait. Man, Bantamweight. By the way, here's a hot take for you. Bantamweight better than lightweight right now. Bantamweight better and more interesting than lightweight. I know everyone loves to say, lightweight. Ooh, it's so great. And it is great. My hot take for you today is Bantamweight is deeper and more interesting than lightweight. How about that? And there's more parity. It's a little more wide open, right? All these dudes. Has Vera fought for a belt? No. Has Sanhagen fought for an official belt? No. Has Song? No. Has Dawalishvili? No. Aldo? Yes. Jan? Yes. O'Malley? No. You know, like there's a little more, there's some freshness there. Chandler, Poirier, these dudes, Gaethje, they've fought for a belt. Don't get me wrong. Lightweight's tremendous. But bantamweight is pretty damn amazing right now, and I'm very into it. Gianni, good day, Ariel. My name is Gianni from Melbourne, Australia, not to be confused with Melbourne, of course. I recently had a wonderful email exchange with Eric about whether or not I should transition to MMA journalism with my burning passion for the sport. He gave me some amazing advice that I will always carry with me. What a mensch. I agree. My question to you is, can you please explain some of the trials and tribulations while studying journalism and how life was like after graduating? Thanks for being someone I look up to greatly. Much love. Keep up the amazing work. Well, since you're focusing on studying, I went into the wrong program, I believe. And I'll say that with a bit of a qualifier. So my degree at Syracuse, at Newhouse, was broadcast journalism, which you would think is a natural fit. However, they really focused a lot on local news. Like their path post-graduation was for you to go and work in market 198 and then 124 and then 94 and then 76 and to work your way all the way up to New York. I never wanted to be a local news guy, and I didn't really want to do like regular day-to-day news. I was obviously very interested in sports, but I was interested in shows, hosting, that type of stuff. Now, I will say I learned a lot of stuff in broadcast journalism that I apply even till this day about sourcing and reporting and writing and ethics and all that stuff. So I did learn a lot, but I've often wondered, there was another program at Syracuse in the broadcasting school, the communication school, that I went to. Newhouse is what it's called. It's the best in the country. There's no debate. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Called TRF, Television, Radio, Film. And I think that one might have been a little more interesting for me because I do love radio and I don't love film as much, but, production and stuff of that nature was of great interest to me. So I'm not sure if I went into the right program or not. I guess a trial and tribulation would be like trying to figure out what you want to do. I remember being in my professor's office right before I graduated, and he was like, "Where's your tape?" And you're going to have to cut your hair, and you're going to have to go to South Dakota and then Iowa and all this. And I just didn't want all of that. So when I graduated, I worked in production, which was never really a passion of mine or a dream, but I got an internship junior year, HBO. I got a job the next year at HBO. And then from there, I met some other people and I went to a production company. I worked on a show for ESPN Classic. And for a while, I was like, all right, I guess I'm going down the production route until I made it to Spike. And I was like, well, I don't like any of this. And I'm going to go down the reporting route and start my own website. And I've told that story a million times before. So I would just say, try to find the right lane, try to find the right classes, courses, program for you. And also, of great importance, when you're in school, try to do as many things as possible that will help shape your idea of what you want to do upon graduation, which means when I was there, I did a radio show, which was really very similar to the one I do now. No one listened to it except for my mom and sister, but I was interviewing people from the world of combat sports. I was talking to myself and my fake producer, Lester C. Dearson. I was finding my voice. I was doing a late night shift and, doing like little news bulletin thingies that lasted like 4 minutes long. I was working for a pop radio station in the middle of the night, Z89, and I got in trouble because I would talk too long and not play the songs, but I understood like I had to learn about the science of talking for 15 seconds before let's get it started, dun dun bump and pull up and dance for me. Every time I hear that song, I think of my time at 4 a.m. listening to this music and also like early P. Diddy. So the point is, do as much as possible, learn as much about journalism, production, TV, radio, find your path. Don't give up, be professional, meet as many people as possible. And like we said earlier with Juliana Miller, 80% of success, just showing up. Try as many things as possible. Good things will happen if you show up. Good luck to you.
Speaking of film.
Yeah.
I watched a breakdown for Roadhouse the other day.
Yeah.
I think I missed a really good film there. And I'm really excited about the new one now.
Oh, wow.
Just classic 80s violence, action. Have you seen
Patrick Swayze? Yes, but I saw it a very long time ago.
So do you remember like his...
No, I don't remember anything from it. I mean, I remember him.
He's a bouncer,
yes,
right? And he's like really good at his job. But the dirt they have on him is that he like finishes people by ripping stuff out of their neck.
Really?
And I'm like, how are they going to do that on this new one? It's like I didn't expect that. I thought it was just going to be like a...
Wait, so did you watch the film?
So I've gotten into this habit. No, I didn't watch the film. I watched like breakdowns on YouTube so I could get it done in like 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half. And they're comedic and you get all the highlights and you get the gist of it. But now I'm excited for the new one.
All right. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Lewis, hey Ariel, on Monday, Dominic Cruz mentioned he represents himself in UFC negotiations. And I recall Sean O'Malley mentioned the same thing on your show. Is this a potentially growing trend? Not really. A lot of fighters have done this over the years, but I do feel like there's great value, especially when your contract is up. And let's be honest, unlike me, I have a bunch of contracts with a bunch of different people. I don't negotiate those. Let's say I have a 3-year deal with Vox. I don't negotiate that or renegotiate that after year 1. It's 3 years, it's 3 years. In the UFC, you could sign a 6-fight deal and after 1 fight renegotiate. So I actually do feel like there is value. Now, you might reach a point in your career and feel like, hey, I got the relationships, I don't need to do it. But I personally think there is value, just for the record. What's the advantage, disadvantage of doing this? You want to do it yourself. You want to cut out someone. You don't want to pay the percentage. You feel like you could represent yourself better. Those are advantages, of course. Disadvantages are, what if your manager is a better negotiator than you are? What if he can bring up things that maybe you're uncomfortable bringing up, that there's a buffer between you and management? There's a litany of reasons why you should and shouldn't. I personally think, like, if I was a fighter, I would have someone, I think, because I think you're focusing on all aspects of fighting, training, weight cutting. There's so much to worry about If you're also worried about the other stuff, then you might be putting too much on your plate. I can understand why someone says, look, there's no sponsorship, there's no this, there's that. Fine. But even with, Instagram and all this other stuff, like you could get sponsors these days. Maybe that was the case 4 or 5 years ago when they first introduced the Reebok deal and the uniforms. Now it's even more than that. It's 7 years ago. There weren't as many outlets, but with the social media age now becoming a thing and people with, millions of followers, you can make money off Instagram. I think it's good to have someone representing you. Secondly, can you explain the argument beef between Dominic and Mike Mazuli? I'm intrigued in a debate, but unclear on the stances. Thanks for your insight on this. When Dominic Cruz was on the show last time, prior to this Monday show, this was a few months ago, he was talking about how, who are these judges? Who are these officials? Who are these referees? With no background, with no fighting experience, with no this, no that, telling me or telling us how to judge, how to score a fight, how to ref, etc. Mike Mazuli, who's the head of the Association of Boxing Commissions, but also they oversee MMA as well, called me and took umbrage with that because a lot of them do have backgrounds in martial arts and wasn't a big fan of the things that Cruz said. So I didn't ask Mazuli about doing it. I want to see, how things go with Dominic. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Of course, even if he loses in a week, 2, 3 weeks, he'd be fine to come back on, but I didn't want to get into all of that now. But I think it would be a fun segment. I'll tell you that much. I think it'd be a very fun segment. Now, someone on the MMA fighting team said that Mike isn't so into it. I could see that, but I could see the benefits as well. Especially if he was all fired up on the phone. Why not? Dan, hi Ariel. Do you have any clue as to whether there's a co-main in the works for 279 that hasn't yet been announced? If not, what do you think of the UFC's decision to move forward with the card as it currently is? I've talked about this. They're not going to stack the deck. There's not going to be your traditional big co-main. It's going to be the Khamzat and Diaz show. Diaz gets pay-per-view points. They don't want him benefiting from that. And it's just the way it's going to be. And by the way, who's out there? 280 is stacked. 281 is going to be stacked in New York. There's not that many options. Dan goes on to say the biggest and most interesting fight outside of the main event are arguably the Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson and Johnny Walker versus Iwan Kuchilaba fight, both of which would be lucky to have been featured on the main card at all in any of the recently occurred or upcoming numbered events. Do you think the UFC brass have dropped the ball here? No, the pay-per-view is going to do just fine. Or will the popularity of both Khamzat and Nate, as well as this likely being Nate's last ever fight in the organization, maybe not, by the way, he could come back, see them achieve strong pay-per-view numbers regardless of the overall poor quality of the card? Yes, it's going to be very much like a boxing card. And by the way, I don't even think they care if it's a bust. We've talked about this. Nate doesn't want to resign. Give him the toughest fight on the way out to try and hurt his star power, diminish his star power is maybe the better word, before he goes out there and tests the market and maybe does a fight with Jake Paul. That's what this is. We have to see what it is. I mean, literally a month ago, Dana White's telling the Mac Life, this guy should probably fight Jake Paul. He hasn't won more than 2 fights in the last 5 years, blah, 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 blah. And now you're giving him Khamzat, who's like, what, number 3, who's coming off a win over Gilbert. This doesn't make any sense at all. In no universe, matchmaking universe, does this make sense. See it for what it is. It's Nathan Diaz on the last fight of his deal, didn't re-sign, give him the toughest fight, hope for the best. Much love to you, GC, New York Rick, Mysterious Frank, and the rest of the team for the awesome work that you do on the show. Thank you. Gilbert, Manishma Ariel. So an MMA judge who scored a fight for Don'Tale Mays was berated on the 277 broadcast by name for scoring of the fight, to the point that Joe Rogan insinuates that he gambled on the fight. He actually posted a reaction video breaking down very specific instructions that judges receive. He mentions in the video that the last judge to speak up was essentially fired, but he feels that he needs to stand up for himself and fellow judges. My question is, did you know judges got in trouble for responding to criticism? If the judges can avoid trouble, would you like more judges to defend/explain their decisions? Thanks for what you and the whole crew do. 1 year next week. Viva Helwani. Thank you. Name of the judge, this is from Lewis, is Seth Fuller. And this is an excerpt of what he said from the MMAfighting.com article on the story, quote, now the commission goes, hey, this is why we shouldn't have put this guy on the main UFC card. And that's, to me, a bunch of BS, because if I'm doing it wrong, then cite me for doing it wrong. But if you're pretending that I'm not experienced or that I was careless or didn't think and do my absolute best, and I don't care about these fighters and care that the result is the correct result according to the rules that they agree to, you're just plain wrong, end quote. The fact that this guy who posted a 28-minute long video cares this much tells me that he should be in this spot, or at least be in a situation where he can judge these events, as opposed to other people who just put in their cards and then go to the bar at the end of the night and couldn't care less. So I appreciate that. Now, I don't know anything about Seth Fuller. I'll be the first to tell you. I do think it's unfair if that was an insinuation. I didn't hear that he was betting on it or anything like that. I don't think that that's fair. That's a very, very serious accusation. I didn't hear it, so I can't really speak to that or vouch for that or anything like that. That being said, judges, yes, are not encouraged to speak. Referees are not encouraged to speak. Officials are not encouraged to speak. And I have said time and again that even if it was like a pool system where someone was sent from the media, every card, this card, it's going to be this guy from MMA Junkie, then it's going to be this guy from Fighting, then it's going to be this gal from SureDog, and this person from Yahoo, and then from ESPN. If someone is representing the people, the media core, and asking certain questions to the commissioner, the commission, referee, judges, as a pool reporter, like we see in the NBA, when it comes to referees, we see it in Major League Baseball when it comes to umpires. Someone to ask questions. There's some sort of body that can speak on behalf, or even if we had access to these people so that they can explain their actions, some accountability, that would be tremendous. Even if there was this like NBA referees association that after controversial moments will review them and then post, their findings. All these things are important, as opposed to what we have now, where it's, hey, sweep it under the rug, let's move on to the next show and hope no one notices. Not the best thing, if you ask me. So yes, accountability would be great. I would love to talk to judges. I would love to talk to referees. Very hard to get them on. There's some who do it, mainly more referees than judges. Very rare to get a judge on the record. A Mark Goddard, appreciate him greatly, will do it. Herb Dean used to do it more, not so much. McCarthy would do it. Obviously now he doesn't work as a ref, so it's different. But you're not going to get a lot of them to speak up. Tough, get Yves Levine sometimes. Tough to get Mergliata. Don't see a lot with Jason Herzog. Don't see a lot with Keith Peterson. It's tough. They are encouraged not to speak. And I get that. I don't think it's the right call. And if that's the case, it would be nice if there was some way to ask some questions. I give a lot of credit to Andy Foster. Bob Bennett used to speak more, doesn't really speak. We've had people over the years, obviously Ratner, Keith Kaiser. Some would speak here and there, but for the most part, there's not a lot of transparency. There's not a lot of accountability, and I don't think that's ultimately healthy and good for the sport. Jacob, good morning, Ariel. Now that the UFC 281 main event has been announced, it seems like the end of the year pay-per-view UFC 282 doesn't have a clear-cut favorite to headline it. Who and what do you predict will headline it? The return of John Jones versus Stipe Ngannou? Possibly, but I think too soon for Ngannou. And I think he's going to try to get that Tyson Fury fight. But now Fury says he's coming back against Derek Chisora. What the heck is going on? By the way, can we stop with the retirement stuff, Fury? Like, come on. You just, really? And it's just going to happen like this against Derek Chisora? Really? After all that retirement talk? Khamzat Usman, doubtful. I don't know. Figgy probably going to fight in January in Brazil. Aljo, I'm going by the champions right now. Aljo's fighting in October. Volkanovski got the bum thumb and hopefully going to fight in Australia. Oliveira, if he wins, I would think would be in Brazil. Islam would be a quick turnaround. Usman would fight in August, possible. Maybe against Khamzat if it's that quick of a turnaround. But, would Usman want to come back that quick? And of course, if Leon wins, it changes everything. Izzy's fighting in November. There's Yuri out there. And then Francis. Look, you guys want the big fights. You want the stack cards. That's going to leave some openings. I had heard that they were interested in Jones versus Stipe for December. That would be a great way to end the year, but I haven't heard much since then. Daniel. Oh my, this is a long one. Good afternoon, Ariel. On Monday during your weekend recap segment with the boys, you were discussing the Rahman Jr. Jake Paul situation. Throughout this, you mentioned that MVP offered Rahman a new contract with the weight limit of 205, with the stipulation being that if Hasim exceeded anything over that limit, the fight would be off. However, after looking through all the press releases for MVP, I can't find anywhere any mention to the fight potentially being canceled if Hasim didn't make 205 in his newly offered contract. There is, however, mention to strict penalties should he fail to make the new weight in a July 31st PR release. With no elaboration from MVP in that statement, you'd have to assume this was implying Hasim's purse being drastically cut. Curious to know if you have any inside information on this or a source I haven't seen where the fight being completely off was an outcome of Hasim not making 205. Yes, I said it. I mean, there's your source. If that's not the case, you'd have to assume the fight would have gone ahead with 206.6 with the strict penalties being enforced. Now, I can't believe, P.S., my condolences to GC on Manchester United losing their first game to Brighton this past weekend, although Eriksson was tremendous. Guys, he agreed to 200. Then he tried to bump it up to 205. Then he didn't sign the 205, guys. He didn't sign the 205. And then when they balked at the 205 and there was talk of 215, then they said the fight was off. How is this even a discussion anymore? How are we even talking about this? He made the 206. God bless. That's not 205. It ain't 200. When we stood there at the press conference, the fight was 200. And then we started talking about 205. And then he didn't sign the 205. And then he comes in to try to prove a point, and he comes in at 206.6. How is this even a thing? Like, I don't understand. I know it is cool. I know it's the hip thing to crap on Jake, on MVP and all that stuff. And I know you're going to say, you're just defending him. Guys, you have to be an absolute moron if you are defending Hasim Rahman in this case. He agreed to a 200 fight, then said he couldn't make 200. Then it's 205. Then doesn't sign the 205. Then he weighs in at 206.6. How the hell is this Jake Paul's fault? Explain to me. He wanted out? He was running? What are you talking about? Now, I think you can make a case that the fight to begin with was a mistake. The guy is big. He is really big. And the idea of him fighting at 200 when he's used to fighting at 220 is a big ask. But I don't know how anyone can say with a straight face that this is Jake Paul's fault. Never agreed to 205. They offered it. They said, all right, it's a week out, let's go. But I'll tell you what they wanted to do. I'll tell you what was going to happen. They were going to show up to New York, they were going to miss weight, and they were going to be like, take it or leave it. And now you've got everyone in town, and you've got Showtime, and you've got ticket sales, and you've got all this stuff, which, by the way, they lost money on. And they did announce that the undercard fighters would get 50%. Now you're faced with a tough call. So you got to make that call a week out. If you start to see that there's some funny business going on and he wasn't going to make the weight. And remember when he came on, he said there were penalties above 200. I mean, the whole thing was a mess. The whole thing was a mess. And if you want to knock him with this. They shouldn't have agreed to it at the beginning. You can knock him with that. From the get-go, this was a mistake. But now, come on. That's crazy talk. Adriano. Hi, Ariel. I was hoping to get your thoughts on Cesar Gracie's recent interview with Submission Radio. Cesar spoke about the lead-up with Nate Diaz into the Robbie Lawler fight. A couple of things that were mentioned was that Nick still owed money to the commission. Correct. He went in with neck problems, which required surgery, which could explain why he wanted to fight at 85, and also that he would be returning early next year. I'll believe it when I see it. Do you think Nick is coming back? I mean, does he fight again? Maybe, but anytime soon, haven't heard anything like that. And if so, who would you like to see him fight, or should he not return at all? Any other thoughts you have about the interview? Would love to hear. I did not see the interview, not because I was, trying to avoid it. Just, I don't know. I don't really watch a lot of MMA interviews, to be honest, or listen to them, but I did see all like the articles and all that stuff. Number one, we should know that Cesar Gracie has nothing to do with Nathan Diaz's career. So I don't know why we ask Cesar about Nathan, and I see people like calling him Nathan's coach. Like, he has nothing to do with his career. Second of all, I've told you a little bit about what happened there. Nick was with another guy, another management, and then almost at the 10th hour left and went with Cesar. What happened there is, I mean, from what I heard, a bit of a dicey situation and not something I feel very comfortable talking about right now, but I would take all of this with a bit of a grain of salt. We saw how Nick looked. We saw his demeanor, his state of mind. We saw everything. I mean, I don't know really what else to say. Did he owe money? Yes. To the commission? Yes. Did he have tax problems? Yes. He has said all of this. Surgery, neck, was that the reason? I never heard that. Cesar never told me that. Even before the fight. Is it possible that that was something he didn't bring up? Sure. Bringing it up now, not sure what that does, but fine. Is he going to fight by the end of the year, early next year? I would highly doubt it. I don't know. Up until the very end of that camp, Nick didn't train with Cesar at all. Like, they hardly had a relationship. So I could say much more about this, but it's a bit of a tricky, messy, sticky situation. I would go back. I would advise you to go back to that article that I did. It was a written article on the day that he was suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for 5 years because of the marijuana. When he talked about, the darkest day of his life and all that stuff, it's a very revealing and, for me, like one of the most memorable pieces that I've ever been a part of. I would go back and read that and consider what is said towards the end there and apply it to this story. Danny, my dear friend Helwani, hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday, and shout out to GC New York Rick and Mysterious Frank as well. This dynamic is as good as the MMA Hour has ever been. My question is, with the hottest prospect in MMA today, Bo Nickel, being only 3-0, I believe it's 2-0, and brought into the Contender Series, completely dominating Borrego and not getting a contract, does it look like Dana is using Contender Series more as a controlled minor league system where prospects can get multiple fights now as opposed to the one-fight viral clip maker that took countless of guys, Sugar Sean, Shabazian, Greg Hardy, straight into UFC shows? Is this a better way to use Contender Series moving forward and hopefully end the Tough era altogether? Tough ain't ending. As long as they're getting paid for Tough by the ESPN Pluses of the world, it ain't ending, and even Dana alluded to this yesterday. Is this being used as a feeder system, as a minor league? Look, it's being used as a lot of things. Content, again, Tuesday in August is great for business. As a place to get guys before they go to other organizations, that's great for business. As a place to develop talent, that's great for business as well. Like, it's all great for business. And yes, initially, did I think, oh, this is the evolution of Tough, this is going to phase out Tough? Sure, but now I don't believe that at all. And now it's Tough. Now it's, Contender Series, and I've gone through the breakdown a lot already, so you don't need to hear that again. But make no mistake, as I said at the top of the show, Bo Nickel's in. He'll get the second fight. It's an interesting play on their part. They're going to tell you he needs another fight, this, that. He's in. He'll win that next fight, and then he'll be in the UFC, and this will all be a distant memory in a year, but perhaps a precedent and a blueprint as to how they'll bring in other guys who are 0-0 or 1-0 and maybe don't want to throw them into the UFC because, again, 0-0, 1-0, as good as he may be, there is value in bringing someone along slowly. What's the rush? If he was a boxer, he would have 20 of these fights. 10 of these fights, 8 of these fights, 15 of these fights. So there's no rush, and he's going to get a quick turnaround. He's going to fight next month, and then he'll be 3-0. And then he'll be ready, which I would argue he's probably sparring against tougher people than he's fighting, but this is the deal that they made. Amin. Hi, Ariel. Longtime listener, first-time question asker here. 2 questions for you. 1, I know you tend not to use notes for your interviews, so I'm curious to hear how you typically prepare for shows/interviews. 2, with Nate Diaz being the draw that he is, do you know if his contract allows him to get pay-per-view points for his main event at 279? Keep up the great work. To answer the second question, yes. To answer the first question, it depends. Usually what I'll do is, again, like if Anthony Smith walked in here right now, I could do that interview. If Merab walked in here, if Jose walked in here, if Anderson Silva walked in here, if Kamaru walked in here, if Francis walked, I live and breathe this stuff. However, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, just to make sure I'm not slipping, usually night before, quick Google alerts or Google News search, see what's been written about them lately, check social media, check their Instagram, check their Twitter, see if something's been posted there, and we're off to the races. Now, if it's a new personality that has never been on the show before, i.e. a Juliana Miller, I'll do a little more research there. You want to learn about them, right? You want to see what they have said on their UFC.com bio and all that stuff. I used to listen to a radio host out of Toronto named Bob McCowan, and he was very good. And he was an institution, and he was on a radio station called Sportsnet 590 The Fan. And I used to hear him say all the time how he does no research and how he does no prep whatsoever. And he likes to go in there fresh so he can ask questions. And I never agreed with that, because that just means, honestly, to me, that you're a little bit lazy, because there's a lot that you can learn from a lot of different people and places and outlets and sources to make your interviews better. I believe strongly in not writing the questions down. I don't believe in not doing research and not doing prep. For example, when I do my Helwani show interviews, I actually have one coming out tonight with Brian Gewirtz. Very excited about it. It was a huge pleasure and honor to talk to him. He's a former WWE writer, head of WWE in terms of their creative team for many years. He was there for like 16 years, now works for Dwayne Johnson's Seven Bucks production company as their SVP of development. Super interesting guy, Syracuse guy. And he has a book that just came out, or it's coming out August 16th, but you can pre-order it now, called There's Just One Problem. It's a tremendous read. And I thought it was very important to read the book before I spoke to him. I've listened to other interviews where they said like, oh, we didn't get through it, didn't read it. To me, like, it's not how I operate. Like, I want to know as much as possible beforehand so then I can ask interesting, pointed, researched questions. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear people saying like, oh, I never read the book, or I never do research, or I never do this, like, by the way, at the very top, you have people doing research for you. I haven't reached that point just yet, but you have people doing research for you. The only time I've ever had someone do research for me is when I did the Summer League games for ESPN in 2019. My neighbor, who at the time was maybe 18 and looking for some work in the summer, is a big basketball fan. And so I had him pick like 8 players on every team. Now, this is Summer League, so these aren't like well-known guys, right? We're talking about, let's say I did a Trailblazers game. Damian Lillard and CJ McCullough aren't playing in that game. It's all their draft picks or undrafted players. And so I had him pick 8 guys and give me like 2 paragraphs on each guy. Interesting factoids, interesting stuff on them. And it proved to be huge for me because Summer League is all about telling stories. And so it was Vince Carter, Jorge Sedano, and me. I was the sideline reporter, and I was able to like drop these nuggets throughout the broadcast, which I actually think got me the sideline job for the regular season games. Research is important. Being prepared is important. Knowing what you're talking about is important. I just think sticking to a script and asking questions that are written down is not the way to go. For me, could be for you, but I like listening, having a roadmap, knowing where you want to go, but connecting with the person, listening to them, looking at them, and asking follow-ups. Josh, Ariel, you are hosting a dinner party for your 40th birthday. It's kind of a big deal. You need to invite one former fighter, one current MMA fighter, one analyst/commentator, one referee, and one MMA journalist. Golly, this is the freaking toughest. Who gets a seat at the table and why? This is impossible. How am I supposed to answer this? Okay, one former, all right. This is a really hard question. Former MMA fighter, GSP. Current MMA fighter, I'm going with the first names that are coming to mind, okay? No one hate me here. Demetrius Johnson. Analyst commentator, Daniel Cormier. Pretty good lineup so far, right? Oof. Referee. I don't know. Do I want to hang out with any of them? I would have said Big John, but I feel like he kind of turned on me, if I'm being honest. I don't know why. Just a lot of comments and stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Referee? Do I have to pick someone? I'll go with I'll go with Dan Miragliotta. I've been on a plane with him. Cool guy. Seems like he can have a good time. An MMA journalist? I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. That's offensive. Okay, I'll do this. I'll put DC as the journalist and Bisping, even though he disparaged me, as the commentator. There you go.
Nice.
Whew. Sonny, yo, Ariel, this one's for GC. Thank God. Thanks for the hard work and analysis you put into every fight. From the first time I heard you give a breakdown, I knew your thought processes were spot on and that your research was meticulous. While it's obvious that you've done your homework for all the recent events, how much of the old school MMA library have you seen? Parlwani, it's a nice name, I'll take that, and New York Rick are sure to come up with a solid list of top fights / events to watch if you haven't. Maybe this can complement the upcoming MMA Hour book club. Thanks for all that you guys do. Your homie, Sonny Chung.
Yeah, well, first of all, appreciate you recognizing the research that goes into the picks. Second of all, yeah, I haven't seen a ton. Like I told you before the show, I've been seeing some of DJ's, Demetrius Johnson's older fights. Like I never saw like a GSP fight live. I thought about just like going through his whole reign and just going from fight to fight. So yeah, not a ton. I haven't seen a ton.
If you ever want some. You're very excited. We can let the people know that our good friend DJ will be in studio on Monday.
Pretty sick.
Mighty Mouse.
I'm getting deep in Nottingham Forest stuff.
Oh, wow. Did you get anything yet?
No, I haven't ordered anything yet, but
wow.
Lewis,
yeah,
always the helpful man, has clarified the manufacturer is Macron.
Ah, yes.
But here's what he says. So I started looking in. Nottingham Forest to not be relegated is -140. Give us something really to cheer for. He says do it. They have 2 stars on their jerseys that represents the 2 European championships, now Champions League, that they won. He says that's the same as Chelsea, Juventus. They're a sleeping giant of a club.
Wow. I like it. By the way, there's a lot going on here with Kayla Harrison and Cyborg on Twitter. Oh, the irony, she writes 50 minutes ago. Then Cyborg responds, what irony? Your own manager said you can't sell a pay-per-view if that isn't a red flag. Then Kayla responds, then come take the money and find out. Winner can take all. Then Kayla responds again, I will also provide free managerial services. Tell me how much you want and I'll go see Peter Murray right now and get it for you. Wow. Things are happening here, guys. Oh, no. And then she wrote that Cyborg blocked her. Oh. No, now people saying that they've tried to reach out to Cyborg and no response. Kayla's just lighting it up. Oh, she's talking about all kinds of stuff. Records. Okay. Back to the questions. Daryl. Hello, Ariel. Greetings from Thunder Bay, Ontario. There's been a lot of talk on the show lately about experiences at sporting events that don't involve the actual contest being played, autographs, free food, etc. To me, this is what I've missed these pandemic years, about seeing sports in person. My highlights in my life have included going early to NBA games and seeing an impromptu shooting contest from just inside of half court between John Lucas and J.R. Reed in San Antonio, walking all the way down from the nosebleed section to just behind the baseline at the Forum because it was all one level, and taking pictures of Magic, Kareem, James, etc. as they ran their layup line until security noticed us and suggested we go back to our section. Seeing the great hacksaw Jim Duggan in a tunnel at a Legends event and sharing a ho and a thumbs up as he walked past. And finally, my one UFC event I just realized was 14 years ago yesterday. Pause for a moment for you to name the venue and the main event. The 2 things that stood out at the event were the unbelievable size of Brock Lesnar, even watching from the upper deck. Of course, that was UFC 87 in Minnesota Target Center. How about that? Against Heath Herring. There's no way to capture that on TV and the amazement of my wife who didn't have to wait. Also, Roger Huerta against Kenny Florian and GSP Koscheck. Randy Couture against Gabriel Gonzaga. Good card. I would love to hear highlights of you and the crew of unexpected things that you have seen or experienced at live sporting events that made the event so memorable. I mean, I could sit here for hours. All the baseball games that I went to, I talked about Tony Gwynn and my interactions, even the ones with Barry Bonds and Ricky Henderson that were not so fun in the moment. The time Lenny Webster, the great Lenny Webster, with his big caboose, gave me his bat. The time that I saw Walt Frazier in a bathroom in Toronto and waited outside, by the way, waited outside to get his autograph. Going to the Montreal Screwjob, that was fun. Going to WrestleMania 18 alone, not for the event, but before the event, I went to the fan access and stood in line to get pictures with the likes of Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. That was very fun. Going to No Mercy 2000 with my friends in Albany, New York, and seeing Kurt Angle win the belt for the first time. That was very fun. Going to a Knicks playoff game with my friend Mo in 1999 against the Hawks when they swept them in the second round and everyone was chanting Jeff Van Gundy because there were rumors that he was going to get fired and replaced by Phil Jackson. That was very fun. Going to the last game at the Montreal Forum and the first game at the Molson Center, now known as the Bell Center, against the Rangers way back in 1995. That was very memorable. Going to a Nets Spurs NBA final game. I mean, I could sit here on and on. You guys have anything you want to share in terms of sporting event highlights?
Yeah, the Knicks Hawks series last year. And, yeah, being an MSG, nice little gentleman sweep on out of there, 5 games.
Technically 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay, yeah. The crowd was chanting, F. Trae Young. Wasn't quite the Jeff Van Gundy, but it was great.
Seems very negative. Kahal. Hi, Ariel. Longtime listener, first-time commenter. Just wanted to ask your thoughts on bare knuckle MMA. Everyone seems excited for it before the first Gamebred FC event headlined by Jason Knight versus Charles Felony Bennett, but the buzz seems to have died off. Do you think it has a future in the landscape of modern MMA, or is it nothing more than a sideshow? P.S. I look forward to hearing you butcher my name. Much love from Ireland. What? What are you talking about?
Did you butcher it?
No. It's because it's Cathal. Bro, I'm familiar with Cathal Pendred. All right, what do you think I was going to say? Cathal?
What if it comes back and that's how you actually pronounce it?
Cathal?
Yeah.
No, it's Cathal. Cathal Pendred. Legend. I'm not a huge fan of the bare knuckle stuff, boxing, MMA. I think it's especially tough in MMA because it already, you're using 4-ounce gloves already and the open fingers, like we're pretty close to bare knuckle already. So I wish them the best. I don't necessarily go out of my way to watch because I think there's enough in terms of MMA, boxing, pro wrestling. I mean, that's enough for me. Those 3 are enough for me. MMA, boxing, pro wrestling, that's enough of combat for me. And then you got the other stuff. I mean, there's only so much time in the day. Handsome Rob. Hi, Ariel. Eric McGracken, my fellow Canadian, recently asked this question on Twitter. How do you reconcile your enjoyment of the sport knowing a significant percentage of the athletes will get CTE? I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject. Thank you for everything you do for the sport and have a wonderful day. Rob from Texas. I've talked about this, especially as I get older, and I've talked about the story where the great Howard Cosell once said towards the end of his time, he hated boxing because he saw what it did to his dear friend Muhammad Ali, and he learned about the underbelly of the sport and just didn't like it anymore. And I've often thought if I will feel the same as the people that I kind of grew up with end up, hopefully not, in a worse state. And I think that we have somewhat become desensitized to it all and we ignore it all. And the sport is young enough to where we don't really have to deal with those, ugly truths. And I think over time we're going to have to deal with it, especially the ones that were coming up in like the mid 2000s. We're going to have to deal with that. And we're starting to see it a little bit more and more. And yeah, it's not just CTE for me. It's the pay, it's the pension, it's the health insurance, it's the future, it's the what do you do when you're 37 and now have to support a family of 3, 4, 5, 6. What that's the part. I get to stick around and sit on my keister here in this chair in this studio and keep talking. What do they do? So it's all those things. Of course, when you get into this, like you're kind of blind to all that stuff. And I still love it and I still appreciate it. And I love it mainly because of the fighters, if I'm being honest. But there's been 1,000 different examples where it's like over time, you're like, gosh, are we part of the problem? What could we do more to shed light on this? Is there anything, like our job isn't necessarily to exact change, but is there anything that you could do to shed some light? That's what I try to do. Dan, how does the recent Tyson Fury announcement affect Francis? That's a great question. I don't think it affects him very much. Let's see how serious all of this is. I still think this is, choice number one for Francis. Fury keeps changing his mind. First, I heard he was going to do some like exhibition stuff with the big dude from Game of Thrones. Then I heard he was going to do pro wrestling with Drew McIntyre. Then now you hear this, like, who knows? Matt Moe, hey, Ariel, no question today. Rather, I wanted to use this opportunity to say rest in peace to 8-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion Leandro Lo, who was fatally shot in the head after an altercation at a concert in Sao Paulo a few days ago. It was a tragic loss for the BJJ community and martial arts as a whole. 1,000%. Honestly, I should have mentioned it on Monday. As you know, I don't follow, again, there's only so much I can follow. I don't follow. I have obviously heard of Leandro Lo. My friend Guilherme Cruz, aka the Brazilian Beast, has written about this horrific story for MMA fighting. Others have as well. And it's just a horrible tragedy. A legend, and even if he wasn't a legend, even if he was just a regular guy, to see a life end this way is horrific. But a guy who meant so much to so many people, who was so important in this community, who was a role model, a very, very sad story. And obviously didn't have the life that a judo Jean LaBelle had, but a tough few days once again in the world of combat. So thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing up the horrific news of his passing. Olajuwon, afternoon, Ariel. Just wanted to give a big shout out to whoever is making your edited clips for TikTok and Instagram. Oh, thank you. That's my good friend Spencer, doing a fantastic job. Probably watching right now. Hello, Spencer. How are you? And by the way, there's a lesson to be learned here with Spencer. I mentioned it in this segment. I mentioned it before, and he actually sent me one several months ago, which was okay, but I was a little bit slow to warm up to it to respond. But I've never met this young man, and there's a lesson here for everyone. Heard me talking about it, shot his shot, as Juliana said, sent me a clip. I loved it, started talking on DM, and things are going great 1 week in. So what's the lesson? Shoot your shot. Yes, thank you for that. Shoot your shot, get your stuff out there. The response to the videos are great because a lot of people, I know stuff get lost in the weeds here. It's a long show. You want to hear my takes on wine and coffee and air conditioning steaks. I know people are craving this content, but you might miss it because it's such a long show. So I appreciate that. And there's also, old stuff, new stuff, relevant stuff. So anyway, absolutely tremendous work. I especially love the one-on-one versus DC one. Pure gold. Thank you. Did you all notice that DC was very slow to respond to that one? I mean, some might say he actually ran. Some might say he wanted nothing to do with the smoke. Some also said that I should have said 10-7 Helwani, but the point is, like, there's no chance he's scoring 7 against me, so I couldn't do that. That would actually be insulting me. Anyway, did you ever get a response from DC? First, he claimed that his comment was erased. I don't know why. And then he posted some whack thing on Instagram. No one really cares. Or is DC trying to duck those Helwani elbows in the post? Latter. Anyways, the TikTok reels have been amazing. Please keep it up. Thank you. Soon you'll be able to add TikTok star to your bio. I mean, I think I'm out there already. I mean, I had a 500 one last week. Actually, no, not last week, yesterday. Have you seen this, Frank?
Yes.
Wow. So I just got a text here from a very prominent manager who said, "Do you have a second?" I'm going to send him a picture of me at my desk here, making this face.
You don't want to call him right now?
Should I call him?
I mean, they texted you in the middle of the
Yeah,
show
that's the rule, right?
in the past. Unless does it sound serious?
Calling him right now. You're right, Frank. When you have a point, you have a point. Hi. This is Ariel here speaking. You're live on the air right now, and we have a rule that if anyone in the MMA community asks me if I have a second while I am live or whilst I am live, you are getting called live on the air. Now, I'm not revealing your identity out of respect, but would you like for me to reveal your identity right now and let the world know how disrespectful this text message was?
Wait, firstly, I don't know if you're being serious. Secondly,
I am live on the air right now. Just for the record, don't say anything that you would regret.
oh, I'm sorry. I've been in like 5 different cities in the past week. I forgot what day it was.
Well, in any event, is it something you'd like to share with the people on the air?
No, I can't.
All right. Well, I will call you when I'm done, but please, we're fairly active on social media right now. We're live on YouTube. There's 4,000 people watching at the moment.
I forgot what day it is. I'm sorry. I haven't been home. I'm just in a vortex. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you.
It will be better.
We'll talk to you. Anything new? Any news you want to break for us?
Not right now.
Anything you want to share to the people? What about that promo, Leon Edwards BT promo?
That was sick, huh?
That was sick.
BT are so good.
They
BT
are.
is so good. That was sick. No, I needed to ask you something, but we can talk in private.
Okay. All right, Tim. Thank you very much. I'll call you later.
Sorry. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was the great Tim Simpson of Paradigm fame. Ooh, Kayla's texting me right now. Should we call her too?
No, unless it says,
What?
are you available right now?
1 second. Okay, back to the questions. I'm sorry. Tim just wrote, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I do like making people feel bad for that. Anyway, back to the questions. Russia. Salam alaikum, Ariel. Cheers from Dubai. No question, just paying respects to Mean Mike Masters, a.k.a. Rocky Jones, who passed away this week at 68 from battling cancer for a second time. Mike Jones was a performer in WWE and then New Japan Pro Wrestling in the 70s and 80s. Over the course of his career, he worked in multiple wrestling territories, both making a name for himself and passing his knowledge on to the next generation of wrestlers. He was a great man, father, and friend. I was lucky to call him my second dad. Wow. May the legend rest in peace. Shout out to everyone we love. Thank you for being you. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you for that. Also, hey, Frank, lots of love, Russia. By the way,
Hi, Russia.
Russia loves you.
Yeah, she posts that every week, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very nice.
She's always a big fan of yours. Why do you think that is?
I mean, consider the source. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. And may he rest in peace, the great Mike Jones. Mean Mike Masters, a.k.a. Rocky Jones. All right. Frank. Bonjour, Ariel. Me and my son, Maël, are on a trip in Montreal right now, and we'll be listening to you and the crew on our commute back. We had to stop by Gibault Orange Julep to understand your obsession about it, and we just wanted to let you know we understand now. What a trip. We had the famous juice and a bagel because it was too soon for the GSP spaghetti. Here's a photo. Much love to you and the crew, Frank and Maël at the Biodome. That's amazing. I'm going to go to, I got chills looking at this picture right now. That is beautiful. I'm happy you guys enjoyed it. There's nothing like that juice. One day I'm going to go get that juice and bring it back for all of you guys so you understand what I'm talking about. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Juanito. Hey, Ariel, Juanito here. Just wanted to ask, are there any fighters you weren't much of a fan of before meeting them? For example, me and my boys weren't the biggest Bilal Muhammad fan. We thought he was boring. But then we ran into him and he acted cordial. He was super cool. And everyone around us took pics with him and played games with a crowd of people in the hot streets of Phoenix. And since then, we can never say a bad thing about him or root against him. We now have a bit of a running joke that he's our favorite fighter on the roster. Thanks for covering the sport the way you do. That's cool. Anyone that I didn't like, that I changed my stance on them? I don't know. By the way, that was 21. Just wanna, get the credit. I don't know. Everyone's pretty nice. I was talking about this with someone yesterday. I would say 98, 99% of the people in the sport are nice. Can't really think of anyone. Ash. Hello, Ariel. On Monday, I wonder if this is the famous Ash. There used to be someone who used to be such a big fan and supporter of the show named Ash. I hope she's doing well. On Monday's show, you made a case for Chito Vera to headline a fight night in Ecuador. Another fighter in a similar position to Chito, big fight coming up, is Merab. I would love to see an event in Georgia. MMA is gaining popularity here. Probably not her. There's a strong, growing community of fighters. Yeah, I would love to see it. There was talk of going to Kazakhstan. I haven't heard anything about Georgia.